Um, Hello, good morning, everybody. Father Edward Looney coming to you a little late. My cell phone died in the middle of the night. I kind of have this like dysfunctional cable that sometimes connects, sometimes doesn't. So, why we're coming to you a little bit later. Got up at like 6:15, slow moving morning, whatever. So that's why we're coming to you at 7:28. So at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. Just a few little housekeeping things as we get started today. Just encouragement to go check out the latest episode of Hey Everybody, it's Father Edward, my weekly podcast, formerly called How They Love Mary, but we rebranded back. Oh gosh, might have been back in February already, several months ago. Rebranded. Didn't know what I was going to call the podcast. But as I watched the replays of a lot of the live videos I had done during Advent and during Lent, I saw or noticed that in every one of them I said, "Hey, everybody, it's Father Edward." I'm like, oh, that's good. And so went with that. I remember I had a few other podcast titles and I pitched them to some people and they didn't really care for them. So, but they didn't mind. Hey everybody, as Father Edward. So just those drop on Mondays typically. So if you haven't watched that or listened, my audience is much bigger on audio than it is on video, but we're trying to develop the video, of course, as well. So I'm trying to continue creating content, video wise, etc. One other housekeeping detail is that if you are in the Grays Lake, Illinois area, so just right across the border, if you happen to be tuning in from, southern Kenosha County, is that the county? I don't know. But if you're in Kenosha or some Racine down there in southern Wisconsin, or if you're in Mundelein, if you are in Libertyville or Antioch or wherever in that area, I will be giving a talk this Saturday morning down in Grays Lake, Illinois. Actually, I think I'm giving two talks. One talk will be on Marian apparitions. The other talk will be on the grace of the place. So, inspired by my book, Places of Grace, which of course you also could acquire from Amazon.com. So those are just a few little housekeeping. The Grays Lake event, I don't know what time it starts. You would think I would know these things. But I know that they've tagged me on Twitter or X. So let me just head on over there and we can get you those details. Um, da, da, da. I don't know how to use things on a. I do know. It's always like you're on a live, and it's like you're stressed or here replies. There should be like a thing where it says mentions. I retweeted it, and I don't tweet that much, so maybe I tweet more than I thought. Here it is, Marian Day of Prayer and Reflection, beginning with 8 a.m. Mass in the church. Oh, that's a little earlier than I thought. Our morning includes talks by our guest speaker, Father Edward Looney, who will share some insights on Marian apparitions. We'll close our time with a holy hour, including the rosary, so forth and so on. All are welcome to join us. So, that's this Saturday in Grays Lake at St. Gilbert Church. If you're down in the northern suburbs of Chicago, please come and join for that event. So let's turn our attention now to Esther Chapter 6. Got a little late start. Fortunately, it's a short chapter, and looks like tomorrow or the next week, that's also a short chapter. That's 10 verses. Today we have, it looks like 13 verses to make our way through. So, again, I think it's just good for us to know kind of the one line thesis of each chapter. So, chapter 1, who is Queen Vashti, doesn't regard the king. And so if by doing this every time, like we learn the story of Esther just in these bite-sized little sentences. So who is Queen Vashti? The second chapter was let's meet Queen Esther. The third chapter was um, the third chapter was Haman's plot against the Jews. So essentially, the annihilation of the people. In chapter 4, Esther helps them. Mordecai prays. Esther prays. And yesterday, Esther is preparing a banquet, and she invites the king to join. So. Uh, I guess I should say, and maybe this will become a little more clear. I I listened to a webinar once about Queen Esther and how, kind of parallels between Esther and the wedding feast of Cana. I have that. I might go back and re-listen to that. But I'm sure like this wedding banquet, like that's where this speaker, where this theologian was getting that from. I guess I can't say that I remember the presentation all that well, but fortunately it's recorded. I can go back and rewatch it. Maybe I'll listen to it on my drive to Grays Lake, Illinois on Friday night. So, all right, chapter 6. The king honors Mordecai. So we have a lot of different characters here. We have Haman, we have Mordecai, we have Ahursus and Artaxerxes, we have Esther, so the king honors Mordecai. On that night, the king could not sleep, and he gave orders to bring the book of the memorial deeds, the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written how Mordecai had told about Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, who guarded the threshold, and who sought to lay hands on King Ahursus. So it was found written how Mordecai told about how Bigthana and Thresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guard the threshold, had sought to lay hands on King Ahursus. So this is the plot, right? To kill Mordecai, to kill the king. And the king said, "What honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" The king's young men who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." And the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to speak to the king about having Mordecai hanged on the gallows that he had prepared for him. There's a footnote, or wooden beam. Okay. And the king's young men told him, "Haman is there standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king said to him, "What should be done to the man whom the king delights to honor?" And Haman said to himself, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" And Haman said to the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let royal robes be brought, which the king has worn, and the horse that the king has ridden, and on whose head a royal crown is set. And let the robes and the horse be handed over to one of the king's most noble officials. Let them dress the man whom the king delights to honor, and let them lead him on the horse through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.'" Then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take the robes and the horse, as you have said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Leave out nothing that you have mentioned." So Haman took the robes and the horse, and he dressed Mordecai and led him through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate. But Haman hurried to his house, mourning and with his head covered. And Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him. Then his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him." Well, there's another verse right before chapter 7. While they were yet talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried to bring Haman to the feast that Esther had prepared. So that is chapter 6. Um, Here, I just want to look something up. Okay. So, all right. I just want to refamiliarize myself with who the role of Haman is. So, Haman is the main antagonist in the book of Esther, who, according to the Hebrew Bible, was an official in the court of the Persian Empire under King Ahasuerus. So as we're talking about Haman, that's who Haman is. Mordecai is the Jewish. Um, Mordecai is the Jewish individual who refused to bow down before Haman. And so that's just a few points of clarification because I think, again, there's a lot of different characters here. And then the other thing I wanted to look up real quickly, and let's just make sure we're okay. Um, so uh, we hear the word eunuch, and you might wonder, what is a eunuch? Who is a eunuch? And so a eunuch, and Jesus, he says this in the Gospels too. He says, like, and there were other eunuchs in the Acts of the Apostles, but a eunuch in the Bible are typically defined as castrated men placed in charge over a king's harem of wives and concubines. So, essentially, eunuch. And I think this is what Jesus says. He says that some have become eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom, and others eunuchs for other purposes. So obviously, kind of this kingly sense, that's the more secular. A eunuch for the sake of the kingdom would be one who chooses the chaste celibate life. There is the famous Ethiopian eunuch who converts in I think the Acts of the Apostles. So um, that's I think, as we heard that word, I just thought maybe, we hear about two of the king's eunuchs. Just a good point there for a little clarification. Um, and so as the chapter 6 began, it said, on the night the king could not sleep. So the king couldn't sleep. So if you have sleepless, restless nights, know you're in good company. Well, unless you don't want to associate with the king, which doesn't seem like he's all that good of a person. And he gave orders to bring the book of memorable deeds, the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written before, and it was found written how Mordecai had told about Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? So these deeds are recorded, and so now, because of the deeds, the king wants to honor Mordecai. And so that's really what we get. There's not too much here to flesh out. It's pretty straightforward. The king's young man told him, Haman is there standing in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said to him, what should be done to the man whom the king delights to honor? And Haman said, whom would the king like to honor more than me? So, who would the king like to honor more than Haman? So Haman is a very prideful person. Um, it's interesting, when I searched Haman before on Google, that was this is the Haman was a proud and ambitious man who demanded that everyone bow down to him as a sign of respect. So we get that sense then of the pride of Haman when he says, whom would the king like to honor more than me? And so, of course, Haman uh, does not like this fact that the king wants to honor Mordecai, and going to bring about kind of all the things, obviously, usher in kind of the very purpose of the book of Esther in chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10. So um, the pride is one of the great reasons why people fall. Uh, let's see here. Haman said this. Okay, there's the end of the quotation. And Haman said to the king, okay, so there's a quotation. Let's just see how long he speaks. Then shall it be done to the man whom the king's. Okay. Then the king said to Haman, hurry, take the robes and the horses you have said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. So here you have the man, Haman, who wants the honor for himself. And the king is saying, no, no, you go and you honor Mordecai. And Haman is the one who doesn't like Mordecai. Haman, you know, because Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage to him, Haman wants to annihilate the Jewish people. So you have kind of the exact opposite now, that Haman is being ordered to honor Mordecai. And um so then that's what the king said. Let's follow the quotation. Okay, there it ends. So Haman took the robes and horse, and he dressed Mordecai and led him through the square of the city, proclaiming before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. So Haman hurried to his house mourning. So Haman hurried to his house mourning and with his head covered. Why was he mourning? He was mourning because what he wanted didn't happen. He's mourning his ego, his pride. And Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened. Then his wise men and his wife, if Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. So kind of all the people around Haman are saying, you're not going to win now. It seems like the king has chosen Mordecai. But then the eunuchs arrive, and they're going to bring Haman to Esther's feast, where Haman will be with the king and such. So just kind of a very intriguing, very interesting story. All these different players. So we talked a lot about Haman today. Who is Haman? Maybe just to clarify who Mordecai is. Mordecai is one of the main personalities in the book of Esther. Let's see. He was the cousin and guardian of Esther, who became the queen of Persia under the reign of Ahasuerus. So that's just to familiarize ourselves again with who Mordecai, who Haman is, so that maybe as you go back and you reread Esther, you have all of these things in mind then. So, well, I think that's all I got for you as we make our way through Esther. Tomorrow, I think tomorrow we're going to do Father Edward opens the mail. I've gotten a lot of books and in the mail, not like that I order, but publicists have asked me to converse and interview the author, and so some publishers no longer send promo books, but this one company that I'm doing 2 or 3 interviews with, they've sent me the hardcover. So, anyways, I have some other books too from the past that were sent maybe a few months ago. So maybe we'll do a Father Edward opens the mail. I'll bring the mail over. I'll put it right here tomorrow morning, and we'll do a little Facebook Live, just spotlighting some of the new works that I've been privileged to receive complimentary. So, anyways, that's the hope for tomorrow. We'll see you then. God bless you.